All right. Hello, everyone. This is June Aculador, a DevCom student from UP Open University. And as part of my paper, I'm here to interview an environment expert. Actually, I submitted my materials to our guest who reviewed my materials, and I am here right now with Mr. Stanley Gahete, a multi-platform journalist. As for his credentials, I will submit it on a separate sheet. It's too long to read it online. Just to give you an idea, his article on the climate change, actually flooding somewhere in Laguna, is highlighted by Deutsche Welle Germany today. So it's part of his job to campaign for environmental awareness through multi-platform social media accounts and even international news network like Deutsche Welle. So, Stan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So I do hope that you're also good after the onslaught of Typhoon. Yeah, Typhoon Tino. And yeah, we will also be facing another typhoon, a super typhoon, possible super typhoon. So hope everyone will be safe and secured in these trying times.
Yes, I hope you're safe as well. Anyway, have you read the
Yes.
papers that I have given you? Have you gone
Yes.
over
Yeah,
it? All right,
definitely.
that's
Yeah,
good.
definitely.
All right, let's start. So, how relevant and timely do you think this survey is in assessing how a local government unit or a barangay, to be specific, mobilizing communities during disasters and climate-related hazards?
Well, I guess, June, there's no such thing as a specific timeline where we're talking about how timely uh, the survey is, especially when we're trying to assess the situation and condition of communities. Every time, every specific time is important as long as it is now, right? Hindi natin siya, kumbaga, ipagsasabukas pa because the time element is really important when it comes to implementation, when it comes to operation, and we're hoping that we're always reviewing and evaluating also our instruments, just like this survey, um, uh, so that more people will become more aware of, more people will be engaged in different environmental initiatives, just like this. These are really important, and these are really pertinent to the lives of people, especially to affected communities that basically affected by different disasters like typhoon, earthquake, or whatsoever. So yeah, the time is now.
Yeah, correct. Uh, that's crucial. You're correct in saying that the time is now. Right. Does the overall structure of the survey, if you go over it, so the overall structure of the survey, it covers preparedness, early warning, evacuation, and coordination. Do you think this effectively capture the major components of disaster management?
Well, I can say in a way, yes. I've been into disaster risk reduction and management stories, investigative stories, designing communication plans and programs. If I could just share way back more than 10 years ago, my research about disaster risk reduction and management were used by the Office of Civil Defense, especially when about communicating framework. So if as I review this survey, yes, in a way it is the overall structure is in a bit effective, but as a communication specialist, a quantitative survey won't measure or cover everything because it's a different approach. It's a positivist approach wherein it's just like, yeah, I know this and that, and survey can't be, it cannot, while it cannot, I also don't know if you will try to make a really random sample of your participants, but since, for example, you mentioned earlier that you only 20 people who will be participating to your survey activity. Of course, it
Initially,
won't
yeah.
initially, it won't don't expect that it could generalize the whole pulse of population. So yeah, the 20 might give you an overview of the situation and the conditions of different stakeholders, but it won't give you a general or a generalized situation that you're expecting to, for example, to receive. So yes, in a way, for a good a starting point for communication strategy, it would be great, but it could also be improved if you will try to create a good research about it.
Yeah, I'll take note of that. Thank you. If you happen to notice, I made the survey easy for the respondents, knowing that my target audience are those people from barangays. And perhaps let's be realistic about it without being racist. I might encounter people from different walks of life. Some of them may be literate, some of them may not be. So I make it a Likert, 5-point Likert scale used from, I have a Filipino version there, lubos na hindi sumasang-ayon to lubos na sumasang-ayon. So from 1 all the way down, from 1 all the way up to 5. Do you think this is appropriate for measuring the levels of preparedness and response? Do you agree or do you not agree? And I'd like to get your opinion on it. Number one, using the Likert scale about lubos na sumasang-ayon at lubos na hindi sumasang-ayon.
Well, to answer your question, if it's appropriate, Likert scale, if you're familiar with the communication theory and communication paradigm, Likert scale is just part, it's in the positivist approach, and it's still part of social psychological tradition in communication, wherein you just get the immediate answer of your respondents or participants, but it doesn't give you the depth of their sentiments.
Yeah.
There are sentiments analysis. There are several types of analysis that we can implement. Just like what I mentioned earlier, this could be a good starting point. I did not say that it is not effective. A Likert scale can be a good a measurement, but as you can see, after I review the survey, it's good, but a Likert scale won't give you the depth because they if you can see, it's a quantitative survey and it doesn't give you any space for their explanation, a space for their how they could interpret or understand their condition, how they could express their sentiments, whether it's good or it's a good thing or a bad thing about the coordination, about how the administration works. So yes, Likert scale is good, but it we can we can implement a deeper way of measuring, because yeah, it's just five. And even for yourself, if you go to sentiment analysis in communication, how can you measure yourself that I like it or I'll not like it in just five scales? So it might be just their a superficial opinion, how they like it or how they agree or disagree. But a Likert scale is just, as I mentioned, it's in socio-psychological tradition, wherein in communication it's just a glimpse, or it's just a very not shallow, but it's just their initial perspective on a particular question. So yes, in a way it could be good, but I cannot say it's not appropriate. It's appropriate or it's not appropriate, but it could be a good starting point. And we always go back to that particular description. It's a good starting point if you really want to know the initial sentiment of your participants.
Right. Thanks. You mentioned earlier about space, so meaning space for them to express more, space for them to qualify their answer, for them to explain what their sentiments are, depending on the question that they'll encounter.
Yes, definitely, because In a survey like this, for example, a quantitative survey and a Likert scale, and you just want to know if they disagree or if they agree or disagree, how can they better explain their answer if you don't have any space
Okay.
for qualitative discussion? So that's why it's really important more than just a particular survey. Remember that you should always weigh in between quantitative and qualitative. And while quantitative is the easier way, but I guess qualitative answers of your participants would give depth and list and a better explanation why they decide to share that particular answer to you. So yeah.
Uh, Going over the questionnaire, let's talk about disaster mobilization. I mean, LGU, the barangay mobilization. Are there any important dimensions or indicators of the barangay disaster mobilization that are missing or should be added to the questionnaire, especially on the mobilization part?
Actually, June, if you try to read some good materials about disaster risk reduction and management and how communication works, if you're familiar with the disaster management cycle, it's as I can see or as I review your survey questionnaire, it doesn't include the whole facets of disaster management cycle. You focus more on disaster preparedness
Mhm.
and response. Okay? But in reality, if we're talking about how the disaster mobilization and all, it all starts from even the mitigation part, which is the longer, a longer phase
Mhm.
before we arrive the disaster response and preparedness and response. So it is really important to also include the phase or the stage or the cycle at the stage of mitigation before we arrive to preparedness. Remember that in order for you to mobilize effectively the people, they should be prepared ahead of time during peacetime.
Yeah.
We have a particular term called peacetime wherein people really don't mind about upcoming disaster. For example, it's during the dry season in the Philippines wherein people are basically focusing on their lives. But technically, if we really want people to become more prepared, especially on onslaught or whatever disaster it is, they should be knowledgeable and in spirit, be prepared, be ready, even during peacetime.
All
Because
right.
yeah, that's how effective mobilization is. It's not just before the onslaught or before the disaster struck, for example. So, yeah, this could be
Yeah.
improved. Again, it's a good starting point, but this could also be improved.
Which makes me go to the next item. We talk about it should be done during peacetime. So we're talking about community awareness. How do you think are useful, or how useful do you think are the survey items in that piece of survey form that I did on community awareness and education, taking from the discussion earlier about peacetime. So this is where community awareness and education should be done, correct? Before the calamity strikes, in evaluating the real level of preparedness among residents.
Well, I guess all instruments like this, like survey, are really useful regardless of how you prepared for it, how you designed the instrument. Like this, the survey. These are all important. Again, it will always depend on how uh, on the depth
Yeah.
of your research, of your
Okay.
communication research for this. So it's really useful. It will always give, a sudden jolt of, oh, okay, maybe sometimes if I'm a participant or if I'm an affected resident, it will give me a sudden jolt of curiosity that, oh, there are still some things that I still need to be prepared of, or there's still some things that I should be prepared of before the disaster strikes, for example.
Okay.
So this will give them a quick review if they are still prepared or not, or if they are really aware of things happening around them. So yes, they are still useful, especially for if you will tackle, for example, affected residents for your survey. Yeah, this is a good starting point for their awareness and education.
Right, got it. In your opinion, does the section on early warning systems adequately address the challenges of communication and public understanding during disasters?
Jude, the questions are really straightforward. And if you could see, you qualify the question adequately addressed. But the
Oo.
questions here in your
Mm.
survey only have four questions. So I cannot determine if this really adequately address the challenges of communication and public understanding during disaster when we're talking about early warning systems. Again, there are no limits when asking questions. There are no really limit when it comes to bounds or boundaries of questions that you want to know when it comes to early warning systems. But as I can see, if it's just a quick, a quick wanted to know questionnaire for your participants for these four questions, yeah, might be might be might contain the most important questions that
Inadequate?
you want. Yes, but yeah, because I do believe that it will always depend on the scope of your limitation, on
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
on the scope of your research. We cannot answer it directly that it's really adequate because it's just four questions. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Got it, got it. At least you have given me an idea to expand the answers more, for it to be not exactly to cover everything, at least to become my survey adequate, quote unquote. Yeah, got it. Thank you. Uh, how about those questions on the evacuation protocols and logistics? How do you think it can be improved to to include, or not to include, but to reflect inclusivity, particularly for vulnerable sectors such as the elderly, PWDs, or even pregnant women? Might as well include children there in this section.
Hmm. I guess this the questions can the questionnaire can always be improved by adding more questions,
Mm.
especially in their needs. Okay, especially if you focus on their needs, but not focusing on their needs, but focusing on their capacities, okay? On how they can also be, if we're talking about inclusivity, we're also talking about their participation. We're talking
Mm.
about engagement, community
Yeah,
engagement. So, when we're talking about community engagement and inclusivity and inclusion, we're not talking about if the local government, for example, is providing appropriately the needs of its constituents or the residents. But it you should also include if they are, allowed to participate to help others because that's inclusivity.
yeah,
In community engagement when it comes to disaster risk reduction and management, we don't exclude people's capacities, even if they're, for example, they have limitations or whatsoever. As long as they are capable, as long as they really want to help, that could also be part of designing a good disaster risk reduction and management protocol. So we should not exclude them. We should
yeah,
not only highlight the needs, what are their, what are their uh, what they're lacking, but what they can also give to people, to other people, to their community, because that's a holistic disaster management cycle. That's we're not. It's okay. Let's break the mindset that when we're talking about disaster risk reduction in management, it's always top-down approach. Okay, I always see that kind of approach that the authorities should implement this. down to people, to community, to on the ground. But the good disaster risk reduction and management protocol should always come, hand in hand. Both stakeholders, the policymakers, for example, and the stakeholders are helping together. Bottom up approach is also good because you get the sentiments of people first before pushing it forward up to the top, and then the top will decide a good a good design of emergency protocols, disaster management protocols, because the sentiments of people are important, and we're taking note of that in order to design a good disaster risk reduction and management, because top down approach is very limiting on the perspective and the point of view of authorities without understanding first the situations on the ground. Those are some of the mistakes and errors of authorities. They always think that their people you know need, for example, hygiene kits, when in fact people have access to hygiene kits. They need support in protecting their roof, they need support in protecting their crop, but no authorities are sustaining or providing assistance to those kinds of help. So there's always a mismatch, there's always a something wrong when it comes to budget appropriation. So first, bottom up approach is also good when it comes to determining the needs of people on the ground. So always take note of that. It should not always a top down approach perspective.
Yeah, I agree with the topic that you raised earlier in terms of inclusivity. It all depends on the capacity of those residents or local residents, regardless who they are, whether they're elderly, they're youth, as long as they are able to help,
Yes.
might as well include them because the more, the better, we have more volunteers. And in terms of scope, we have more, it's far reaching or wider reach because there are people, a lot of people who will be involved in terms of help when disaster happens.
Yeah, okay. You know what, Jun, if I may share, there's a good disaster management model. It's based in Surigao del Norte. They presented it in Europe, actually. When it comes to inclusivity, they include different sectors, vulnerable ones. Okay, we don't use PWD's term. It should be persons with disabilities because PWD has a derogatory negative connotation. Persons with disabilities, elderly, children, LGBTQ, they participated in a focus group discussion, and they shared a lot about how the community can improve the strategy when it comes to emergency preparedness, response. So it's really a holistic, inclusive, all sectors. So that's what we call a holistic approach when it comes to disaster management. That we're not only relying on what the authority can do, on what the local leaders can do, but it's really about empowering all kinds of sectors, empowering all participants in the community, that they can also be a source of help, not just a recipients of aid. Always take out of that we're not just a recipients of aid, but we can also be a source of power to helping other people in different sectors.
All right. That's good. Got it. Do you think the items on coordination and response in that survey accurately reflect how LGUs or even barangays interact during emergencies? What could be strengthened? And in this aspect, I'd like to ask for your help in terms of strengthening the coordination and response of the barangay officials and the local residents.
Actually, again, accurately reflect, it's really, a very restricted criteria, if we can say it's effectively and accurately reflect. if we have only four questions. Again, we can go beyond these questions and we can include some more a deep level question on how they really want to implement this. We're talking about interoperability. There's a term in disaster risk reduction and management. We're talking about interoperability, wherein we're maximizing the operation and we're mobilizing not only the authority or those who are in power, but even the constituents, other sectors, the private sectors in a community, the NGOs, etc., etc. So when we're talking about coordination and response, the interoperability should reflect all types of stakeholders, not just the authority who's in power, helping those who are in need, but interoperability wherein it's inclusive, it's all over sector, it's different sectors, including all sectors, even private sector, private organizations, because that's how a good coordination and response really works during in times of disaster. So we need to deviate or remove that kind of mindset that's always the local leaders who should always be responsive, but interoperability in a way that is everyone is involved. uh that's why you could compare the disaster risk management. I believe if you go to community, it's a different way rather than in Metro Manila.
Mm.
Most people in Metro Manila, for example, a community in a condominium, your neighbor, you don't know your neighbor is, di ba? Hindi mo kilala yung kapitbahay mo. In community, kakilala mo sila at kayo ang nagtutulungan. So there's really a definition in coordination. Really, separate definition and coordination and response. So, um, this survey should be implemented in communities, in rural communities, because that will reflect a good kind of coordination and response, rather than if you will implement this just in an urban setting.
Yeah.
So, may iba-ibang psychological, differences, how they work, how they coordinate. The interoperability really works hand in hand and effectively in rural communities, believe me.
Yeah. Speaking of, in fact, I'm trying to get in touch with the local leaders of a certain barangay in Laguna. So I will definitely push through with the rural setup or rural setting or rural place where this survey has to be done, and I will do that tomorrow. Tomorrow I will do
Oh,
that.
that's good.
Now, for a or from rather a climate change perspective, how could this survey be made more responsive to emerging risks like extreme heat, drought, or sea level rise?
You know what, June, how can I say this? Typhoon is different from extreme heat,
Yeah,
drought, or even sea level rise, even earthquake. That's
yeah,
why this should be avoided by the authority, that a disaster risk reduction and management protocol or strategy should be implemented in all forms of disaster. That should be avoided because earthquake is a different thing. We
yeah,
don't know what will,
yeah,
we cannot expect the time of its arrival. Drought, it's a long term. Okay? In Catanduanes, when I went to Catanduanes, while they experience El Nino, the perspective of foreigners think that they are expecting during that time when we visited Catanduanes, they were expecting that people are really, you can see left and right, hungry people, very thin, malnourished. That's their expectations because that's how the drought in Africa. uh,
Was
in
portrayed.
Africa.
Yeah.
Yes. In the Philippines, we're used to it in extreme heat. And they utilize some of their commodities, transformed it, converted it into a different kind of a product so that they can still survive.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a good thing, it's a good learning that a good disaster risk reduction management strategy should, should that be implemented in all forms of disaster. There
Yeah.
should be a dedicated strategy for earthquake, a dedicated strategy for typhoon, for El Nino, sea level rise, or whatsoever. Because
Yes, I
there's
agree.
yeah, it's a differential risk analysis. We're talking
Yeah,
about differential
that's
risk
true.
analysis.
Yeah.
Differential risk mean iba-iba naman yung risk na binibigay nito, iba-iba din naman yung epekto nito sa tao. So, yon, doon tayo nagpumapalya.
Oo.
Akala natin na yung strategy should just be one. So, ayun.
True.
So, in a climate change, and journalist perspective, this could be a good starting point, but we can always advise those who are in power na maging ano tayo, masipag tayo sa pag-create ng strategies, more strategies na specifically dedicated sa isang form ng disaster.
Yeah, different strategies per calamity, tailor fit the
Yes,
preparation for the
exactly.
calamity. Now, before we run out of time, lastly, I need your recommendation. What do you think would give or make this survey more effective as a tool for guiding the communities or LGU in improving disaster preparedness and community resilience? One, I agree with what you said. It has to be tailor suited for the type of calamity that we are about to face. So it no such thing as one size fits all. It has to be tailor made. So perhaps that is one of the recommendations. I am just summarizing what you said earlier. Can you like give me at least two more uh, recommendations before the time runs out?
Yeah, because maybe for your survey, this is a good, like, how can I say this? KAP?
Yeah.
If you're familiar with KAP,
Mhm.
knowledge, attitudes, and practices.
Yeah.
A KAP is just one tool in a communication research design wherein you just want to know if people are aware of how they think this could help them, or this the leaders will be good when it comes to implementation, and how they practice, coordination. So this is a form of KAP actually, a knowledge, attitude, and practice. But always take note that there are several ways in improving the survey. If you really want to go deeper, you can also look for awareness, their perception is a different from
Yeah.
KAP because it's how they see it, even if they haven't encountered it, for example, yet. Evaluation, you need evaluation of programs and policies. People should give their point of view, their perspective, how they evaluate the current, disaster management in their barangays or in their locality. Sasabihin nila, I guess parang kulang naman sila sa pag-i-inform because a good evaluation study, communication study is a good a tool in knowing if it's effective or not. You can also know their participation, how they are willing to participate. Because inclusivity, we're talking about inclusivity. So you really need to understand, baka naman, sige, go sila ng go, pero hindi naman sila magpa-participate. So it will give you a different kind of answers. Their motivations. Ano ba yung nagmo-motivate sa kanila para tumulong? Sila ba ay mag-evacuate kung bibigyan mo sila ng pagkain or hindi? So, iba yung motivation eh. And then expectations and needs. Ano ba yung ine-expect nila sa isang magandang disaster management protocol? So maraming pwedeng i-improve dito sa survey. And always take note that again, a quantitative survey won't give you the whole scenario, a whole description of phenomenon if you really want to understand the situation. So a qualitative, again, qualitative is a different thing. It will always give you a different context, a different value when you talk, not necessarily all the 20 participants, but when you talk in just one person, you do sit down interview and you understand their stories, it will again give you a different kind of flavor and perspective to your communication research.
Yeah, thank you, Stan, for giving me that perspective. With that, I would like you to know that I'll be using your interview as my source. I will also transcribe this and include the things that we have discussed today in my the summary that I will be doing. And before submission, I'll give it to you for your review before I finalize everything. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
yeah, Jude, you can also include that I'm also, teaching in University of the Philippines.
Of
That's
course,
why, yeah, it's a
I
communication
forgot to say
research. Yeah,
that.
communication research. So, kaya
Yeah,
medyo, in a way, meron po akong kaunting alam para sa ating mga makikinig at
yeah.
nanonood. Meron po tayo nabibigyan ng opinion kasi tinuturo ko rin po ang communication research. So, yeah.
So with that, you heard him. He's also a professor, an educator at UP Los Baños, what's it?
College of
College of
Development.
Development Communication, UPLB-CDC. All right. Thank you, Stan.
Maraming
And
salamat.
thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. All right.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.